What's good? What's good, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of The Urban Platform Speaks. Make sure to like and subscribe as you tune into the channel and check out the content. And with that being said, man, it just every time somebody stick a mic in Isiah Thomas' face, he got to bring up Jordan, right? And people are starting to ask, like, is this healthy? Like his obsession with Michael Jordan, like, can it be healthy? Is it affecting his health mentally and physically, man? Because it never fails. Right now, one of his latest comments, I think he was on a podcast with like Tim Hardaway, Lindsey Hunter, and all those guys, right? And part of the it got around to Mike, and he brought Kevin Durant into the discussion, saying that Kevin Durant would have done the same thing in Chicago or had the same type of success in Chicago under the same circumstances as Michael Jordan, right? Now, Tim Hardaway, later on pushed back on that. And if you watch the video when he was making these comments, like Lindsey Hunter, Tim Hardaway, those guys really wasn't feeling it. But I think out of respect for Isiah Thomas, they didn't really call him out on it. Like I said, Tim Hardaway, commented on it a little bit later. But I've said in previous videos, like even people who didn't really like Michael Jordan and thought Michael Jordan, got calls and it was favoritism when it came to Michael Jordan. They even realized that Mike was that dude. Nothing was given to Mike. Mike earned everything. Even, like I said, even though they might have felt like the league was favoring him, but Mike still earned everything, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play the comments that Isiah Thomas made on this podcast. Then I'm going to come back and I'm going to give my reaction.
Now, in Chicago, you bring Kevin Durant from Washington culture, Texas. You put him in Chicago where me and you grew up. And in the fight that Chicago had to have, right? That gets put in you from a playing standpoint. Okay. Now, I'm going to fast forward and say, okay, Kevin Durant with Scottie Pippen, Tony Kukoc, Dennis Rodman, or Horace Grant, or any of them other dudes that they had on that team, DJ Armstrong, Craig Hodges, you put him in the triple post. Now, Kevin Durant, arguably the greatest mid-range scorer the league has ever seen. Mm-hmm. You put him in the triple post in the NBA Finals, those 6 times, and he's guarded by Jeff Hornacek. Is he giving Hornacek numbers? He's frying Jeff Hornacek. Is he giving Hornacek numbers? No disrespect, man. No disrespect, right? Is he giving Hornacek numbers? Right. Okay. Is he giving Nate McMillan and Gary Payton numbers?
Yeah, probably. It'd be more difficult on GP, but yeah, he is.
He give him enough. 6'11", 6'2", 6'3", whatever GP is. Yeah. In the mid post. Yeah. Right? And then they talking about, well, we'll just push him out to the 3. Oh, shoot that, okay. Now, okay, who else? So they beat Utah twice. They beat Seattle. Just went through those 3. Lakers, okay, Phoenix, now NBA Finals, Phoenix, right? Dan Marley and Kevin Johnson. That's who was guarding Jordan.
Ain't nobody guard KD then.
This is a good.
Here's okay. So fast forward to the next one. Who
Lakers.
Lakers. Was that Scott? No, he was out.
He was out.
Oh, he was hurt.
I think it was Sedale 3.
No, he wasn't. It was Tony.
Yeah. Not Tony Smith.
Might have been Tony Smith.
You're right. Yeah, Tony Smith. Yep.
Yeah, Tony
Smith. Who else? Somebody else. So you basically saying nobody could guard KD, no. Like right in that. And
dude, KD would be a problem in that triple post.
Yeah.
All right, so let me say this, right? Now, those matchups, I think, it's easy to look back and say, or like try to compare the eras, say Jeff Hornacek versus Kevin Durant, right? But also remember that Jeff Hornacek got help. Gary Payton, when they played for Seattle, Gary Payton and Nate McMillan got help. It was like a team effort to slow down the Chicago, not just Michael Jordan, but slow down the Chicago Bulls, right? So it was a team effort. If you know, for Isiah to say, put it out there one-on-one, you know, he would have destroyed those guys. But in my opinion, those guys, number one, were underrated. Most of them was underrated as defenders. Number one. But let me see. Dan Marley was a great defender. So I don't think Kevin Durant would have had an easy time with Dan Marley. Jeff Hornacek, I think he was underrated. He got, you know, he used to be able to get physical. And then on top of that, it was Shannon. What was the guy name? There was another guy that played against Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan hit that the game-winning shot on him. He was a defensive specialist, or was supposed to be a defensive specialist, right? And like I said, it was Mike a lot of times got double teamed. And one thing about Kevin Durant, he's not a physical player. And that league, in those days, they just was it's just they were just so much more physical. And so you just can't call out names and say, oh yeah, this guy, Kevin Durant would have killed this guy, because it wasn't one-on-one. You know, I remember when Mike scored 63 points against Boston, the Celtics, that, you know, like everybody on that team got some of that work. So Isiah Thomas, in my opinion, just really have an in for Mike. And I don't think it's healthy. Those guys, a lot of those guys who were sitting there talking with Isiah Thomas, they played against Jeff Hornacek. They played against Dan Marley. They played against Gary Payton. And so they know like how tough it was to play against those teams. Karl Malone and all those guys, man, it just wasn't easy. And so and then on top of that, I don't even think, in my opinion, I don't see Kevin Durant as being one of the greatest mid-range shooters. You know, like how can you quantify that? Kevin Durant, you know, he had success when he was with Steph Curry. You know, like his team was loaded when he was with Steph Curry and the Golden State Warriors. His team was loaded. But look at what he did without Steph Curry. Like he couldn't win. He couldn't get his team over the hump. He got close a couple times, but he couldn't get his team over the hump. And this obsession that Isiah Thomas had for Michael Jordan, man, it just can't be healthy. And that's what people are really, you know, like I said, go back and look at that video. I forgot I think it's called a crossover podcast or something like that, with Tim Hardaway, Lindsey Hunter, and all those guys. They were mainly guards. But that, you know, if you look at those guys' body language and you look at some of the expressions on their face, and you're talking about comparing Kevin Durant or replacing Kevin Durant with Michael Jordan, it was, you know, it's just not gonna happen. Michael Jordan had that drive where, though, I don't care where you had, if Michael would have played anywhere, you know, if he had a guy drafted by Cleveland, or if he had a guy drafted by, you know, the Wizards, I'm not saying he would have had that same type of success. You know, he wouldn't. I don't know if he'd have won 6 rings, but I do know that Mike was a dog, and nobody has really, you know, people don't call Kevin Durant a dog, you know, and if he do, he's not a dog to the level of what Michael Jordan is, right? And people who had the opportunity to see Michael Jordan and what Michael Jordan went through, you know, before he got those rings, and then once he started getting rings, you know, he just kept on going. He didn't stop, right? And so that's just not, to compare Kevin Durant to Michael Jordan, you know, it just was crazy. And like I said, every time somebody stick a mic in front of Isiah Thomas' face, man, he can't help but bring, you know, Jordan up. And in my opinion, it's got to be some type of sickness. You know, he's just it, and it seems like as the years go on, he get more and more obsessed with Michael Jordan. For a while, you know, he didn't bring it up unless asked. Now, you know, he just every time, you know, he talk about basketball, it's got to be Michael Jordan. So Mike is just living in this guy's head. And a lot of people are worried and don't think it's healthy. I don't think it's healthy either, man, because Isiah Thomas is just holding on to some he's just holding on to some grudges, and it can't be healthy. So that's my take on it. Make sure to like, subscribe to the channel. Also, don't forget to leave a comment. And with that being said, man, I'm gonna check y'all out in the next video. Peace.